Welcome on in, Eagles fans, to episode 54 of the No Huddle Show, our Philadelphia Eagles podcast right here on NJ.com. I'm Joe Giglio, joined as always by Elliot Shore-Parks and Mark Eckel. They cover the Eagles for NJ Advanced Media. They were there at Lincoln Financial Field on Sunday afternoon to watch the Eagles continue to be perfect at home. A 24-15 win over the Atlanta Falcons. Eagles moved to 5-4 on the season and 4-0 at the Link. Elliot, we'll start with you. I saw after the game you had a video up on the website about the Eagles and this home field advantage that feels like it's back. I kind of felt like it was coming back, but I feel like Sunday against the Falcons really cemented that with the way they played, and just they're different at home.
Yeah, I mean, what's weird is I've been traveling with the team for 3 years now, and I never felt that the Link was one of those stadiums where you walk in it and you can really feel like, the fans are loud and, it's sold out, but I never felt like it was this amazing home field advantage. But 4 games into this year, I mean, it's hard to deny it. I mean, they're giving up an average of right around 9 points a game at home, and they're giving up over 23 points a game on the road. They're running the ball better at home. They throw it better at home. And it's not like this is an instance where, they're playing their worst teams on the schedule at home. I mean, they've played arguably, besides the Cowboys, 3 of their best opponents have been at home. The Steelers, the Vikings, who actually don't look like they're that good now, and now the Falcons. So, I mean, they've played their better competition at home, and they've dominated. So I think, it's like I said on the website and in the video, it's becoming one of the toughest places to play in the NFL. And I would have never guessed that coming into this year.
Mark, your thoughts on what you saw on Sunday and really just this idea that the Eagles are a different team in Philadelphia for some reason than they are when they're not in Philadelphia?
Well, I mean, guys, we're not reinventing the wheel here. Most teams are better at home. That's why they call it home field advantage. It's why the bookies make every home team a 3-point favorite when they start their line, and then they work from there. So this isn't anything new, but it is dramatic. I'll say that. This is a dramatic difference. I mean, they haven't played even close to a poor game at home. I mean, they've looked good to very good in all 4 home games against 3 pretty good teams, and then Cleveland, who stinks, but still they beat them. I mean, you can only play who you're supposed to. And it's I don't know. Well, as it goes on, we'll see. I mean, if they can keep it up, if they go 8-0 at home, they will make the playoffs. I'll guarantee you that. If they go 8-0, I will promise you without a doubt that if they go 8-0, they'll find another road win somewhere and have 10 wins and be in the playoffs.
It'd be tough to disagree with that, Mark. I mean,
actually they might be able to get in 9-7 if they win all their home games.
And then that would require no more road wins because they already have one from that Bears game in the second week of the season. And yeah, I mean, you look forward here, and we'll talk a little bit more about the game, but just looking forward based on what you said, Mark. I mean, they have Green Bay in 2 weeks at home, and Green Bay looks like a mess right now.
Half their team's hurt, and the other half isn't playing well.
Exactly. And they have then in December into the beginning of January, the 3 division games against Washington, the Giants on a Thursday night, which is an advantage for the Eagles, although not a big one because the Giants don't have to travel far, but still. And then Dallas in week 17. And, the Cowboys could be resting people there, Mark. I mean, the idea of 8-0 at home is not ridiculous.
No, that Cowboy game, I was thinking about, this is like an Elliot question. Elliot, you mentioned?
All right, yeah, go ahead.
Kind of questions I get like 6 times a week from Elliot. When the Eagles play the Cowboys, will it have meaning for both teams? Will it have meaning for just the Eagles? Will it have meaning for just the Cowboys? Or will it not mean anything at all?
I think it'll have meaning for both, but in different ways. I mean, I think the Eagles will be fighting to get in the playoffs, but I think the Cowboys could be fighting for the number 1 seed in the NFC. How many losses do the Seahawks have? Because I know they have 2, right?
They're 6-2-1. Is that right? I think so.
Dallas is a game and a half lead on them right now.
Right. So, I mean, I would think they would still be battling with the Seahawks at that point.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I mean, you think the Cowboys aren't going to lose another game?
You don't think Seattle's going to lose another game?
No, I mean, yeah, maybe. I mean, I think they'll both lose. They're both
2 games.
They're both going to lose games, yeah. But, I mean, I'm just saying I think that
so you think it's going to be something to both?
I think the Cowboys will still be fighting for playoff position. They'll be in, but they'll be, the difference between the 1 and 2 seed maybe.
That's a big difference. So that means it means something.
That'd be quite a scene if it was Tony Romo playing in that game because the Cowboys were resting Dak Prescott.
Right, yeah, that's what I think. I don't think it's going to be anything to Dallas. After Dallas won yesterday, I don't see them losing I don't know. I don't see them losing too many more times. I think Seattle may, And although, see, I thought of this question before the end of last night's game, and I was anticipating Seattle to lose last night, and then I really would have thought it would mean nothing to Dallas.
Right. Yeah. That changed it because that was a big.
But I still think it might only mean something to the Eagles.
It might, and that would be an advantage, obviously, for the Eagles.
Yeah, Dallas, but they might rest Zeke, they might rest, and who knows?
Right, and that could be a big advantage for the Eagles. So we'll look forward to that, and that's one of the 4 home games left. So the Eagles are 4-0 at home now, dominated. And yesterday, and we're doing this podcast on a Monday, particularly in the game against Atlanta. I mean, 2 things stood out. We can talk about both of them. Let's start with the defense, and then we can get to the running game and the way the Eagles approach the offensive side of the ball. But Elliot, I mean, we've talked about this defense before. They've had big games. I think it was after the Viking game that Fletcher Cox said to you when you wrote about it that they could be the best defense in the NFL. I mean, they've had big moments, but they're inconsistent, it seems like. But yesterday, on Sunday, was another one of those where you're like, wow, this defense really can be really good, and they just dominated the Falcons' offense.
Yeah, and once again, it starts with the defensive line. I mean, Fletcher Cox didn't have a sack, but he had 6 hurries on the quarterback and I think 1 tackle for a loss. So he had a solid game. I don't know if he had a $64 million game, but he had a very good game. Connor Barwin played well. Brandon Graham played well. And the return of Benny Logan. I mean, we've talked on this podcast over the past 3 weeks about how Bo Allen is a very good player and, you want him in spurts. And, I think he's, like I said, a very good player, but we saw yesterday that he's just not Benny Logan. I mean, but Benny Logan does this defensive line. He changes it. He's very good against the run, and what really separates him from Bo Allen is Benny Logan can also rush the passer, and you saw that yesterday against the Falcons. So again, like we've said all season, this defense is as good as a defensive line. Yesterday, against the Falcons, arguably the MVP of the league in Matt Ryan, or at least in the conversation, and an offense that was averaging 33 points coming into that game. They held him to 15 points. So, yeah, I mean, the defense played extremely well. They still have big holes in the secondary, and I thought that really showed yesterday with Leotis McKelvin. And I know he had that interception at the end, but I still think he had a terrible game. So the defense, I don't think they're the best in the league yet, like Fletcher Cox says, but when they're at home, they're considerably better. There's no denying that.
They are. And Mark, I mean, yesterday Elliott mentioned the defensive line and how they kind of started to wreck that game early. And I thought the tackling was really good, too. I mean, when Ryan actually did complete a pass, it felt like 3 or 4 times Malcolm Jenkins made a big tackle in front of the first down sticks. They kept getting off the field yesterday.
Yeah, they did. And that's what you want a defense to do. I mean, yeah, pass rush, sacks, they're great, and that's how guys get paid. $64 million, as Elliot pointed out. And likes to point out, but no, get up 3 and outs are great. Third down conversions, they're the numbers. They're the hidden numbers in my mind that are the most important. I mean, I think the dumbest stat of all time, and they rank teams on total yards. Who cares? I mean, a lot of times you're ahead and you give up 60 meaningless yards at the end of the game, but that counts on your total yards. So it looks, like Atlanta had 303 yards yesterday. Nah, they really didn't. You know what I'm saying? That wasn't a 300-yard game. They had 2. But who cares? They like you said, the Eagles made the plays when they had to make them. They held them to 50 points. 15. That's a good number. That's a real good number.
I will say too, though, that both teams always in every game, things happen. But the Falcons dropped a few passes where, again, the Eagles secondary allowed them to get open.
One big one, and that Julio Jones drop. Maybe that's what it does. Maybe playing out the link, you drop passes.
Yeah, that's just how it works. That was on 4th down too, right? Late in the game, that Julio.
The one that.
It was late in the game. So, but overall, even though with
very, 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 very big play from a guy that probably doesn't. I don't know how many drops he has this year, but it's not a lot. And it was a clear drop too. It wasn't like somebody knocked. It looked like one of the Eagles.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but yeah, no.
11 on 3rd down yesterday. That's a big number. 2 for 11. 0 for 1. 2 for 11 on 3rd. 0 for 1 on 4th. That's big. That's the kind of numbers you want out of your defense.
And it was shocking. I mean, really, when you think about it, the Falcons had scored 33 points a game, and yesterday was the least first downs they've had in a game since before they drafted Matt Ryan. So, that wasn't just a really good Eagles defensive performance. Like, the Falcons haven't been shut down like that in a long time. I think that even adds to it, Elliot, that this wasn't just another, good Eagles home performance. Like, they shut down the best offense in the NFL that no one else has been able to do.
Yeah, I will say though that this felt like a Falcons loss outside of the fact that the Eagles played well. I mean, second half of the season on the road, the Falcons traditionally, I mean, they did it last year and they've done over the past years. They've traditionally folded in this case. So yeah, I think that the Eagles defense definitely played really well and they earned this win. But I'm not surprised at all that the Falcons lost that game yesterday and really didn't play well at all and didn't show up. So I mean, the Eagles had something to do with that, but I also think you're starting to see a little bit of the Falcons starting to fall off a little bit.
The only problem with that, Elliot, is this year they can afford to fall a little bit. I don't see anybody in their division catching them this time.
No, I think they'll win the division, but I think any talk of this team being like the best in the NFC or anything like that, I don't think they're in the same class as the Seahawks and the Cowboys.
Well, we might be talking about this matchup again the first week of January. If the Eagles keep playing well and win all those home games, we could see this matchup again in Atlanta probably
as a 4-5 game, right, or 3-6.
Yeah, and I if the Eagles can figure out,
although they're a different team in the dome.
Oh, I was gonna say, yeah, right. If the Eagles can figure out how to win on the road, I think they can beat the Falcons. I mean, it's just I don't know what it is about being at home. I mean, the players. I normally don't put a lot into this, but the players, to a man, will tell you that they feed off the energy at the link. So I think that it sounds a little corny, but maybe it is really true because they're clearly a way better team at home.
Oh, it's not even a question. And look, and when you have 8 of them at home, that's a lot. So I mean, if they could keep winning them, they're gonna be in this thing the rest of the year. All right. So how about the offense during this game, Mark? Where we've seen the Eagles' offense have some good days. We've seen them do some good things. A lot of frustration there. But the interesting from the game against the Falcons was just how well they ran the football and how that set the tone for everything. I mean, they held the ball for 38 minutes in this game. Matthews came back in a big way, and I thought the offensive line, Mark, played its best game in a long time.
Yeah, I did the grades. I did the grades for Monday morning. I gave the offensive line an A, and the only reason I didn't give them an A plus was because they had 3 or 4 penalties. A couple, Kelsey had a hole, Peters had a false start, somebody else had a. So that's the only reason they didn't get an A plus. And I don't give A pluses out, that often. I don't even give A's out that often. But no, the offensive line, yeah, without a doubt, their best game. Carson Wentz was hit just 3 times on 38 dropbacks, sacked twice, and I think I'm going to give both sacks to Carson or covered sacks, call it whatever, either one you want. I don't think they were like the one. He had time, and nobody's open. He moved around a little bit, and then Vic Beasley, who's very good by the way, finally got him. And then the other one, kind of the same thing. Probably should have thrown the ball away a little quicker and took a sack, but no, the line protected very well. And when you run for 208 yards, it's not just the back. I mean, both backs ran well. I mean, Ryan Matthews had a great game, best game of his Eagle career with 109 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then Wendell Smallwood did almost as well. I mean, he had 13 carries, 70 yards. So if he gets 6 more carries, he probably has 100 yards. So yeah, they ran it. It was balanced. That's what you got to see. They got to wait. Peterson's offense has been pretty balanced. As a matter of fact, I'm writing about that for Tuesday morning. When the Eagles are balanced, they're very good. I think they're I don't know, whatever in 1, but they got away from it. Both the Dallas and Giant games the last couple of weeks, they had Wentz had to throw the ball more than 40 times, and they only ran it like 20 something times. That's like a 2-to-1 ratio, and that's not good. You don't want that.
I think part of the reason is they've been falling behind a lot more on the road. I mean, in all these homes,
yeah, Dallas, no, they were never behind. They were never down more than 3 or 7.
Right, but I'm saying in the Redskins game, the Lions game,
they were balanced. Redskins game, they were balanced.
But I'm saying they've in those 3 games they fell behind by at least 14 points.
But they still ran against the Redskins and they came back. The 2 games they weren't balanced were the Dallas game and the Giants game. Giants, I understand, he fell behind 14-0. Dallas, I don't understand.
Right. Well,
they stayed balanced and they were very good.
So I was in looking up how much better they've been at home than on the road, and one of the reasons is, speaking of Ryan Matthews, when they're at home this year, they've been giving the ball to Ryan Matthews an average of 15 times. On the road, they've been giving it to him an average of 7 times. So I mean, it seems like all week leading up to this Falcons game, Darren Sproles is his number 1 running back. Darren Sproles is his number 1 rack. We got to get the ball to Darren Sproles. Even in the beginning of the game when they introduced their starters, they introduced Darren Sproles. And then Ryan Matthews was clearly the featured back yesterday. And we've debated a lot on this podcast.
Well, actually, Sproles played more snaps.
Yeah, but Brian Matthews got the ball more.
Well, yeah, but that doesn't mean
right. Well, But I'm saying they clearly decided to feature Ryan Matthews yesterday.
Well, I think Doug does what he said. I mean, I've asked him this more than once, and he gives the same answer. And I think he's honest as he is most of the time with us. It's the hot hand. He goes with the hot hand. Matthews was running well. If Matthews' first 5 carries would have gone for 9 yards, he might not have gotten a 6th carry. But he ran well early, and that's what Doug does. Doug's like a basketball coach. If the guy's hot, he gives him the ball.
Yeah, and like I was going to say, we've debated on this podcast how good Ryan Matthews is a lot of times, but when he's on and he's playing at what he's truly capable of and he's healthy, I mean, he is probably the best running back on this team in the way that, he's powerful, he can go down, through the tackles. I mean, he played really well yesterday, and he adds a complete dimension to this offense because, like you mentioned, Mark, when they're running the ball well, and usually when they've run the ball well this year, it's been because of Ryan Matthews. Then you don't have to have Wentz throw it 45 times again.
Well, Sproul was starting against Pittsburgh, and they ran it okay then. But Sproul still, I mean, they used Sproul with what he's best at. They gave him 2 carries, and he got 19 yards, which is pretty darn good, 9.5 yards a carry. But he threw it to him 10 times, and he caught 8 of them. So that Sproul still had 10 touches, which is a good number. He should be between 10 and 15 touches. It doesn't matter to me if they hand it to him or throw it to him. You guys agree with that?
Yeah, I like the way they used everyone yesterday. I mean, I like when they're running the ball through the tackles with Matthews, Sprinkling, and Smallwood. And then, I mean, we've seen Darren Sproles for 12 years now. No one could cover him when he runs those little option routes where he could go in or out or keep going down the field. And I think he got like 3 or 4 first downs on that same kind of play yesterday where he has the option to just take the linebacker or the safety wherever he wants. I mean, it's interesting. Did you guys find it interesting, too, when Doug said – Elliot, when he explained to you guys, I think it was right after the game, and Fox had it during the game, so I guess he told them maybe during those pre-game shows on Saturday when they meet with the coach. But Fox said it, and I was like, wait, what did they just say? And then Doug said it to you guys after the game. So the reason Matthews didn't touch the ball much in Dallas was because of a tooth issue?
Yeah, Doug actually said that to us earlier in the week, that I guess – and he missed practice one day because of it too, actually. I guess he had an infection in his tooth, and his face was swelling up.
But that was down. That never explained the Giant game.
No, it didn't. It explained it. But I guess it added to the context of, like, the assumption became, it's now, Darren Sproles is the lead back on this team. And Doug kind of even fed into that during the week.
But saying that too, though.
Right, no, he was. And it gave us all the perception or assumption, whatever word we want to use, that he was. But then yesterday it wasn't. It's like, I'm not sure each week who's going to get the ball.
They don't know. I honestly believe this, and I'm not saying this in a negative way at all. I think they prepare all 3 guys. Maybe some teams. See, I think Dallas, even though Matthews had the wisdom tooth or whatever it was. I'm sorry, I keep saying wisdom tooth. It wasn't a wisdom tooth. It was a regular tooth because he had to have a root canal done. But I just think I think they thought Sproles was a better matchup against Dallas. I really do. I don't, for whatever reason. I'm not an offensive coordinator, so I don't know what they looked at and saw, but they just thought the smaller, shiftier guy would do better. And he did. Sproles played well against Dallas. But I think they prepare all 3. And like I said, I really believe the hot guy gets the ball. I do. I think that's the way it goes. Like I'm telling you, Matthews, it wasn't like this was Matthews' game yesterday. It was, Matthews is playing well. Let's keep giving him the ball. If he not done well those first few carries, it would have been Smallwood, or it would have been the next guy.
And that's the thing about the Eagles running backs. I mean, we talked about the Cowboys and watching them last night, or yesterday afternoon against the Steelers. Obviously, if you're the Eagles, you would rather have a feature back like Ezekiel Elliott, somebody that really scares opposing defenses, they have to game plan for, and someone that you can give the ball to in any situation. But if you don't have that, at least the Eagles do have, in my opinion, 4 running backs. I'll include Kenyon in there. That are pretty interchangeable. I mean, we were talking before the game yesterday that there's almost no instance where if they put this running back in instead of that running back, you would say, wow, that's an egregious mistake. I mean, some days you can make the argument Darren Sproles is their best running back, so it makes sense to give it to him on a big carry late in the game. Some days it's Ryan Matthews. So the Eagles don't have a feature back, but when everything's clicking, they do have a collection of running backs that do complement each other. They can all do different things, and they're all pretty interchangeable.
Let me ask you guys another question. I'm going to ask questions today. I have a lot of questions. This is a 2-parter. One, we all assumed, or we didn't write it maybe, but we talked about it a lot. Ryan Matthews not being here next year. He's gone.
Yes, I agree with that.
Do you still think that? And do you still think running back is a major need of this team?
Yes, I think Ryan Matthews is not back in. I still think it's a major need. I'd have to look at the exact numbers, but I remember thinking if they move on from Ryan Matthews, they save $2 or $3 million, and this team's
it's not about saving money; it's about trying to win.
Right, but what I'm saying is I think they're going to try to upgrade the position anyway. So, all right, a couple of things. One, I think they're going to want Smallwood to play a bigger role next year. So you're not going to pay Ryan Matthews $5 million or whatever he's going to get to be the third running back on this team, because I think Sproles obviously is going to be here. They gave him a 1-year extension. Smallwood's going to have a bigger role, and I really do think they're going to draft a running back in the first 3 rounds. And if you draft a running back in the first 3 rounds, then you're really talking about someone that's going to play. So
that's what I agreed with all that until yesterday.
Yeah, but I think it's just one game.
I don't think I'm overreacting in one game. I could be.
Yeah. Oh, he played really well, and I think you saw that the danger in getting rid of Ryan Matthews is that you're then going with, to a certain degree, a lot of unknown. I mean, Ryan Matthews, we know what he is. Some days he plays really well, other days he's hurt. He just is what he is. But with Smallwood, I think he has a higher ceiling at this point. But his floor is also lower. We don't know if he can have the career Ryan Matthews has. But I think the Eagles, on a larger scale this offseason, are going to put a ton of work and a lot of their resources into upgrading their skill positions. And I think that is going to include running back. So I think these are going to need cap space, and I think Ryan Matthews isn't worth the cap space that he is slated for next year.
$2 billion doesn't spend like it used to, Elliot.
No, but when you're not in a great cap situation to begin with, I mean, every penny, they got to figure something out with getting more cap space.
I don't know if I'd waste it. I shouldn't say waste. I don't know if I would use. And again, I thought all this. You're saying what you're almost. I was agreeing with all that, but now I'm starting to think after because let's bring up the one bad part of yesterday. Wide receivers didn't do a damn thing,
and the cornerbacks.
Right. So that's my 1 and 2 picks, and offensive line got to get in there too, right?
Well, what do you think about Vitae? I mean, because what their analysis of Vitae will really dictate a lot of their offseason. Because if they don't think Vitae is their long-term, at least their potential long-term starter at tackle, then without question the biggest need on this team is tackle. Because then, I mean, if you have Vitae and Lane Johnson, then you have 2 young players. And yes, Johnson has clearly the suspension. But you at least have 2 young players at tackle that, you think you can build around for the next few years.
What about guard?
Yeah, but you're not going to use a top
3rd round pick on a guard. Why not?
Yeah, 3rd round pick. Yeah, maybe.
I go corner first, wide receiver second, guard, offensive lineman third. I'm a running back. It's not. I think running back has fallen behind in my mind. The top needs. I have at least 4th now.
And also, this Eagles 1st round pick, we had thought was going to be in the late 20s, maybe even, you thought potentially number 31 or 32. But now, I mean, this could end up being like 17, 18 type area for the Vikings pick.
The best part about it is right now for the Eagles, they're tied with Minnesota. So you look at the NFC playoff standings. I think the Eagles sit at 7 right now, so right outside the playoff spot. And they are ahead through a tiebreaker with the Vikings. So we could get to a point this season where the Eagles make the playoffs at, let's say, 9-7. The Vikings miss at 9-7, and the Eagles get a better pick because of it.
And moved up to get yeah, exactly. So they will have moved up in the 1st round last year to get Wentz and still have right around where their pick would have been anyway. So yeah, I mean, there's still look. When to go back to the draft needs and where you go. I am not against. Obviously, we have to look at the draft board and see who's going to be there, but I'm not against the idea of taking a running back in the 1st round if you think he's special. I mean, because I really, really think what this offense needs. It more than whatever position you want to categorize it as, they need a playmaker. They need a special talent.
I think they need it at the wide receiver position more so than the running back position.
I don't know. I mean, I agree they need a receiver, but I also think you could go out and sign a receiver. I mean, Alshon Jeffrey.
That always works.
Well, I mean, it worked with Terrell Owens. I mean, I know
one thing to add, this seems like a great running back draft class, right, compared to a wide receiver draft.
Very good running back draft class, from what I'm told. Yes.
Right, so that could play into it. They might be able to get a guy that they think is better than Matthews in the 2nd or 3rd round. In most years, you can't take that.
Back in the 1st round, especially in this draft because there's so many. And no, I wouldn't. I just wouldn't.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying in this exact I haven't looked at the exact board, so I can't tell you I'd take a running back.
I would take one. in the first.
But I'm saying in general, I'm not opposed to taking a running back in the first round like I used to be.
I mean, no, I'm not. Depending on your team, I'm the one is when Dallas took Ezekiel Elliott, I was one saying, "Whoa, man, that's a good pick. They're going to add that guy. He's going to be great." I wasn't against that for them at that point.
Right.
I don't think.
I think the Eagles team. I think if the Eagles next year get to number 18 and the best player on the board is a running back, right? Or then I would be like, I think this.
You're right. I wouldn't rip it, but I don't think they'll be. I don't think that might be the case. Who knows? But I don't think the best running back will be there. Let's say they're picking. Let's use your number 18. I don't think the best running back will be there at 18. I think he'll be gone. Like Elliott went 4.
Right.
Therefore, I don't think I'm taking the second or third or fourth best running back when I can get a similar guy later, and the best receiver might still be there at 18. Mike Williams from Clemson might be there at 18. I'm grabbing him.
Right, but the thing I've seen with this team through 9 games now is they just need a special player at the skill position, and I'm not as concerned with it being a receiver as opposed to being a running back as you are. I think they just need somebody that can make a play. I mean, how many Eagles skill position players this year have turned nothing into something? Where like they catch a ball over the middle of the field and they break a few tackles and go, or a running back makes people miss in the back.
Darren Sproles is the only one.
Right.
Right, but I'm saying that also at running back,
maybe I'm just fresh off yesterday's game where I watched the running game go for 200 yards and I watched Jordan Matthews have a Jordan Matthews classic Jordan Matthews game, a nice fine game, big one bad drop, but 6 catches and nobody else do anything. Yeah. Aguilar was Aguilar, nothing. Dorial Green Beckham was he there?
I'm not saying they don't need a receiver. That's not the point I'm making. I'm just saying I still think that I would be okay with adding a top running back as much as I would be with adding a receiver. I think as much as their running backs can get the job done when the offensive line plays as well as they did, I still think a special running back would change his team as much as a special wide receiver would.
Let me ask you guys this as we look forward for the rest of this season, because I mean they've had some interesting games in the way they've approached offense, right? Like some games they've thrown the ball a lot. Yesterday on Sunday against the Falcons, they had their best running day of the year by far, one of the best ones they've had in a while. 7 games left. They're obviously in this thing, and they have to figure out play better on the road, but they're in this thing with 4 of those 7 left at home. Elliot, we'll start with you, then we'll go to Mark. What do you think their offensive identity is right now? Like as we look forward, do you think it will start to become this more of what we saw against the Falcons, running the football? Do you think it'll change week to week? When I was watching the game, I thought back to what Chip always wanted to be, right? Which was, every week, the ability to have the kind of versatile offense to do whatever's necessary to win. Run 40 times, pass it 40 times. It obviously didn't end up working out for him the way he wanted, but I always thought that idea made sense to kind of be able to be versatile. This team might be able to do that in terms of, play call. Elliot, what do you think they're going to be the rest of the year?
I think if they could write the blueprint for what they want to be on offense, I think it would be yesterday, where they run the ball well and then Wentz doesn't have to do as much. I think as Peterson continues to coach his team and going into next season, I do think they want to be a team though where Wentz will throw the ball 35 times because I think he has that talent, and I think the Eagles obviously do as well. So I think for now their identity is more, and I think Malcolm Jenkins said it best last week. They're just an offense that needs to just keep things simple and not make mistakes. I know they had the one fumble yesterday with Wentz. They did have a turnover, but when this team just takes care of the ball, they're able to put points on the board. It's never pretty, and it's not a one big play, but they are good at methodically driving down the field. So I think that is what they would want their identity to be: running the ball and then allowing Wentz, in bits and pieces, to kind of take over the offense.
Mark, how about you?
Methodical. That's what they are. That's my word for this Eagle offense. I used it yesterday in one of my stories. They're methodical, and I don't mean that in a bad way at all. They're not a big. They haven't been a big play, big strike team. I mean, they had the one, and I can think of one real big play in the last month. The bomb to Treggs, who, again, he didn't play yesterday. He didn't do anything yesterday either. So the dawning of the Bryce Treggs era took a little detour yesterday, but their opening drive, of the game, which was beautiful. It took like 8 minutes off the clock. It went, what was it? I got it right here. 12 plays,
70-something yards.
12 plays, 81 yards, 7+ minutes. That's beautiful. That's a beautiful drive. The first drive of the second half, It only ended in a field goal, but it went 14 plays, 70 yards, took 6:44 off the clock. The game-winning drive, what proved to be the game-winning drive in the fourth quarter, went 8 plays, 76 yards with 2 penalties, so really 10 overall call plays, took 8:11 off the clock. They're incredible drives, and we said Atlanta's offense didn't do much. They weren't on the field that much. Atlanta only ran like 40 plays, right? Let me count it up. Atlanta hardly had the ball. Atlanta ran
48 plays, something like that?
48, counted 2 sacks. Yeah, 48 plays in the game. Well, that's not a lot of plays. I mean, the Eagles defense played well, but they only had to stop 48 plays. The Eagles offense had it for 76 plays. You should actually win easier than they won by those numbers.
Well, they probably should have. I mean, that game in the fourth quarter got a little wacky there. I mean, they probably could have won that game by even more.
Well, you know what happens when you have a big strike like Atlanta did. Atlanta had the 76-yard touch. A big strike's going to skew that a little bit because when you score in one play, it kind of I'll don't get me wrong. I'll take a one-play scoring touchdown every time too. But no, I'm just saying. The Eagles are methodical. That's a good word for them. They that the winning touchdown drive. It was Ertz, Sproles, Ertz, Sproles, and then Matthews for the touchdown. It was, no wide receiver touched the ball on that winning drive. That is where I go back to this team needs a wide receiver.
Well, they do. I don't think anyone would argue that. I mean, they need to improve the wide receiving core.
I'm having a little bit of one with me.
Yeah, and it's going to be an off-season priority here. Let's look forward to Sunday, this coming Sunday in Seattle. So I think logic would dictate, guys, if this team just continues to follow their pattern, they're going to lose in Seattle and then probably come home the next week and beat the Packers at home. But as far as this game, the one thing that stands out to me, Elliot, is look forward here is, I mean, the Seahawks are really good. They're always really good at home. The one thing that gives me some feeling like this could be a game is the Seahawks offensive line, although they started to feel like they came together maybe against the Patriots, they're not very good. Like the Eagles their defensive line should have the advantage there against the Seahawks. I mean, that's the one thing I say, maybe they've got a shot in this game.
Yeah, I mean, I'm 6-3 picking the team this year, so I feel like I have a pretty good pulse on, when they're going to win and when they're not. And I don't think this is a win for the Eagles. I think they have a chance to improve on the road as the season goes on, but I talked at the beginning of the podcast about how the link, even though they're really good at home, doesn't feel like that special place yet. I haven't been to Seattle. I'm excited to see this stadium everyone always talks about, but that is the thing about Seattle. This is if you're trying to improve on your road, Seattle's probably not the place you want to go to fix that. So I think that Russell Wilson. I just think the Seahawks are both a considerably better team, and I think it's on the road. So as of now, I don't think the Eagles go into Seattle and get the win. If they kept it close, it wouldn't shock me, and I think they probably will because the Eagles have not been blown out in any game this year. So I think it'll end up being a close game, but I don't think this is the week the Eagles solve their issues on the road.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And if we could I think we could blame Week 17 last year for this game, right? Because if the Eagles had lost that game to the Giants, they would have got to go to London and play the Rams. Instead, this is the prize, to go to Seattle. Mark, what are you thinking about this game as we look forward to the end of the week?
It's kind of early, but I tend to agree with Elliot. This is a tough. I mean, if they can win in Seattle, what the hell? Then you're talking. They should win them all. They should end the season 12-4. I mean, this is by far I thought it was their toughest game when the schedule came out. When I think we had to rank that when the schedule came out, I ranked them the hardest, the easiest. This was the hardest then. It was the hardest at the it's the toughest game. I mean, it's without a doubt their toughest game. It's on the road. It's in a place. It's probably the best team when this Dallas I guess too, but you're playing Dallas is a division game. There's something different about division games. This is a Seattle's tough. Seattle's a good team. They're also undefeated at home. Russell Wilson is playing like the old Russell Wilson again. He's healthy. Yeah, his line isn't very good, and that should be. The Eagles have done well against bad offensive lines, except Detroit. Detroit didn't have a good offensive line that day. When they went there, and for some reason, the Eagles didn't take advantage of it. So the Eagles' defensive line has been a better home team too. So again, I'll think about it more. It's only we're doing this Monday. I don't have to make my pick yet. And I'm not 6-3 like Elliott, but I'm coming on. I've won the last two.
There you go.
So I'm getting a feel for this team. This is going to be a tough one.
It will be, and it'll be a fun one. The Eagles and Seahawks Sunday in Seattle. At least the Eagles have the little cushion of getting over 500 before they take on.
The win yesterday was crucial because if they lost yesterday, they would have almost had to win in Seattle, and I still wouldn't think they would have. And then if they were 4-6,
the season's over at that point. Really,
I mean, not mathematically, but
it's not looking good.
Yeah, I'm calling the priest.
Yeah, it's we're getting there. We're getting close. As of now, it's far from that. The Eagles have a lot of season left. They're in this thing. We'll be back to talk about it next week after you guys head to Seattle. Elliot, have a good week.
Yep, talk to you guys soon.
Thanks, Mark. Have a good week. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you, Joe. Take care.
Thanks to all of you for listening to episode 54 of the No Huddle Show, our Philadelphia Eagles podcast, right here on NJ.com. Subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, anywhere you listen to podcasts, you can listen, and leave us a rating on iTunes. It helps the show grow. We'll talk to you next week.